So, the International Day of Play is a wonderful opportunity to recognise the vital and critical role that play plays within our lives. Play supports learning, creativity, well-being, connection, and inclusion, and it is a fundamental right of each and every child. Today's celebration brings together people who share a commitment to promoting the value of play in our homes, in our early learning and care and school age childcare settings, within our school environments, within our communities, and far beyond. And we're really excited today to hear from our speakers, to learn from one another's experiences, and to explore how we can champion play as a powerful force for development, health, and happiness. So whether you're joining us today as a practitioner, an educator, a researcher, a policymaker, an academic, a parent, or an advocate, your perspective and your contributions today are greatly valued. So without any further ado, I am going to hand over to Mary Immaculate College's Dean of Education, Professor Emer Ring.
Míle buíochas, Claire. Thank you so much indeed. I would like to welcome my two co-editors, Professor Marissa Macy and Dr. Alessandra Landini, whom you'll be hearing from during the webinar, and to especially welcome all of the authors and contributors to the publication, as well as the many reviewers who supported us throughout what was really an exciting journey over the past year. As Claire said, we have colleagues from all over the world joining us on the International Day of Play, which we're very excited about, from multiple countries, including Canada, China, Cyprus, France, Georgia, India, Ireland, Italy, South Africa, Spain, Turkey, and the United States, of course. We have often read about the perils of globalization. However, we have tried to flip that around, and we are focusing on localization, as these publications show can yield exceptional benefits for all of us as we all seek to realize our children's rights in a rapidly changing and volatile world. We have a busy hour ahead, but hopefully one that will be inspiring and valuable for all of us as we learn with and from each other. And again, as Claire said, thank you so much for giving up your evening to join us here on this journey. So we're going to begin the webinar with a presentation by Professor Peter Moss, followed by a presentation from Anne Mackin, manager at Happy Days Ballyporeen, County Tipperary. Professor Marissa Macy and Dr. Alessandra Landini will then bring us through the two publications, and hopefully we'll have some time for comments and questions at the end. So without further ado, I am delighted to introduce Professor Peter Moss. Professor Peter Moss is an emeritus professor at Thomas Coram Research Unit in the Institute of Education, University College London. His research interests include early childhood education, education and democracy, and the relationship between care, gender and employment. Much of his work has been cross-national, and he's co-founder of the International Network on Leave Policies. His most recent publications include an article on the International Early Learning and Child Wellbeing Study, PISA, and the decline of the OECD's testing regime, and the books Early Childhood in the Anglosphere, Systemic Failings and Transformative Possibilities, and Care Leaves and Care Time for All Towards Caring Democracies, Economies and Worlds. He's currently working on a project on democratic culture in early childhood education, drawing inspiration from the democratic tradition and culture in the municipal schools of Reggio Emilia and the modern school movement in Portugal. So without further ado, we will hear from Professor Moss.
Thank you for this opportunity to contribute to the public webinar that marks the International Day of Play. And let me start by congratulating Emma and her colleagues for their work in producing two books due out this summer on the theme of children's rights, and with a particular attention paid to the municipal schools and early childhood education in the northern Italian city of Reggio Emilia. I would like to use this opportunity to add a few reflections on Reggio Emilia and that city's contribution to children's rights and democratic education. These reflections might be titled The 5 Ps of Reggio Emilia. The first P is for project. Over time, I have come to understand Reggio Emilia as a local cultural project, a term I once heard used to describe the early childhood education in another Italian city, a reminder that Reggio Emilia is not unique, but one of a network of Italian towns and cities that in the 1960s and the 1970s made the choice to take responsibility for the education of their young children. Each created its own local project of education. This was, in the words of Enzo Cattasi, a municipal school revolution. Carlina Rinaldi, one of the first pedagogistas in Reggio, has written about the construction of the educational project in the city. And just as project work plays a central role in Reggio's pedagogy and the process of children co-constructing knowledge, so too we can see Reggio's schools and their pedagogical work as the product of progettazione, a collective process of hypothesis, in this case about early childhood education in the school, that the process of hypothesis being co-constructed to be put forward for researching, for testing, and for reconstructing. Rinaldi again, project work grows in many directions without an overall ordering principle, challenging the mainstream idea of knowledge acquisition as a form of linear progression. The metaphor, she adds, is of the tree. Moreover, just as project work in the classroom is the product of the particular context in that classroom, so Reggio Emilia's schools and education are the product of that city's particular context, historical, cultural, political and social, which means it is impossible to copy or emulate Reggio, for like each child, Reggio as a community is itself unique. Reggio may have an approach, but that is not a blueprint for others to follow. Each must work on their own project. The second P is for political. For Reggio Emilia has always understood its education as first and foremost a political project. The technical, the how-to, remains important, and we should never lose sight of the intense practicality of Reggio Emilia, the attention paid to the conditions needed for their project to succeed, their acknowledgement of organisation as a value. But the technical, they have understood, must always follow after the political. For as Loris Malaguzzi puts it, our discourse in Reggio inevitably is also always a political discourse, whether we know it or not. It is about working with cultural choices, but it clearly also means working with political choices. Political choices necessitated by asking political questions, questions that, unlike technical questions, cannot have one right answer. Political questions that start with that most evocative inquiry: what is your image of the child? To which question Reggio's choice has been clear and has been the basis for all that has followed, for their project, for their pedagogy, for the provision they have made for their children and families. Their choice has been the rich child, born with 100 languages, a child with rights, a protagonist of unknown potentiality, a potentiality that is, in the words again of Carlina Rinaldi, stunted when the end point of their learning is formulated in advance. At a time when early childhood education is so dominated by what Malaguzzi called prophetic pedagogy, that knows everything beforehand, knows everything that will happen, has no uncertainty. This is an image of the child that cannot be reduced to predetermined outcomes and standardized goals. A child that instead gives us our sense of an unfinished world, a world unknown, a world we ought to know better. I quote there from Malaguzzi again. The third P is for public. Reggio Emilia comes about because the community, the citizens, chose to take public responsibility for the education of their young children. And the community, the citizens, also decided to build and offer that education in a network of public provision. Schools provided either by the municipality itself or by cooperatives working with and for the municipality. This is a public system of education that is inscribed with democracy, in which participation is a central value. As 3 of Reggio's pedagogistas wrote in an article, the educational project of the nurseries and nursery schools of Reggio Emilia is by definition a participation-based project. This means that everyone, children, teachers and parents, is involved in sharing ideas, in discussion, in a sense of common purpose, and with communication as a value. Everyone is an active subject in the educational relationship, each contributing complementary and necessary knowledge. With such participation, schools can become, in the words of Loris Malaguzzi again, living centres of open and democratic culture, enriched and informed by social encounters. They are public spaces. Developing this theme, the schools are, in the words of another pedagogista, laboratories of democracy, and are not merely providers of services in response to social needs, but cultural and political protagonists, an essential part of the polis. As she adds, they belong to the community. The fourth P is for pedagogy, understood in this context as meaning education in its broadest sense. An education that goes beyond the cognitive to encompass the social, emotional, physical, moral, and cultural, the holistic formation of the individual as a member of society. Reggio Emilia is first and foremost a pedagogical project, a project of education. For the rich child has a right to education from birth, an education that, as I've already said, spurns the certainties and predictability of prophetic pedagogy, valuing instead uncertainty, the unpredictable and wonder, an education in which, as Malaguzzi wrote, every other week, every other fortnight, every month, something unexpected, something that surprised us or made us marvel would burst out in a child or in the children. But this was what gave us our sense of an unfinished world, a world unknown, a world we ought to know better. Not that Reggio ignores the needs of employed parents or indeed the importance of care. Early on, Malaguzzi recognised, and again I quote, that schools must adapt to factory hours, we would probably say office hours today, progressively opening up to workers' children with improved responses to family needs. While the women of Reggio Emilia campaigned for municipal schools to meet their own needs. But these women, along with Malaguzzi and the other educators in Reggio, got their priorities right, with education and not childcare at the heart of their project. The women of Reggio Emilia demanding not only their rights, but the rights of their children too, refusing to see them as in opposition. Reggio schools for young children may provide childcare for working parents through their opening hours, but care is understood as a universal need and a collective responsibility, a relational ethic that, as Stefano Germanuti puts it, the premise for daily life in Reggio Emilia, something that is required and owed to everyone, to all children and all adults. Which brings me to my last P for provocation. To me, coming from the Anglosphere, the English-speaking world, where early childhood is dominated by a childcare discourse, economistic and technical in language, and where provision is increasingly commodified, marketized and privatized, Reggio Emilia is a constant provocation. It challenges our assumptions, contests our dominant discourses, shows us that nothing should be taken for granted and that there are always alternatives. Reggio Emilia insists on the primacy of education and of the public. Its discourse speaks of children's rights rather than human capital and return on investment, and it values democracy and cooperation over individual choice and competition. And let me end with one further provocation. Reggio Emilia insists on the value and intelligence of the early childhood educator, treating these educators not as mother substitutes or technicians, but as researchers, as democratic professionals, and as intellectuals. In Malaguzzi's words, as producers of knowledge connected with the demands of society. We live at a time of polycrisis, of multiple, interconnected and converging crises that are more than the sum of their parts. A polycrisis that confronts humankind with an existential and unparalleled threat to its future. Loris Malaguzzi believed that education had to be, and I quote, dynamic, not mummified, reconstructed and updated based on the new conditions of the times. Failure to do so, he warned, would mean that it lost its nature, its function, its proper capacity to correspond to the times it lives in, and above all to foresee, anticipate and prepare the days of tomorrow. In short, he argued that education must be engaged with and relevant to the conditions of the times. Faced by the polycrisis, we urgently need to frame political questions and make political choices about our education that will render it fit for purpose. In doing so, the provocations posed by Reggio Emilia have an invaluable role to play. Thank you for your attention.
Wow is all we have to say. Thank you, Professor Moss, for reminding us of the crucial importance of education for our times as we grapple globally with the polycrisis that confronts humankind with an existential and unparalleled threat to its future in these times. And these times very much resonate with the context experienced by the parents of Reggio Emilia after World War II, and that we know prompted the foundation of the early childhood system that is now a worldwide phenomenon, reminding us of the power of education to transform when it is acknowledged as a right for all children and when, as a society, we take responsibility for our education seriously. So, Gurmila Mahagut, Professor Moss. So now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Anne Mackin to you all. As those of you who have completed or are completing the LINK programme know, We are always focused on how theories can be translated into practice in our early childhood settings. Our next speaker this evening is Anne Mackin, and Anne has kindly agreed to provide us with a window into how Reggio-inspired practice influences her own setting at Happy Days in Ballyporeen, County Tipperary. Anne is a manager of a community-based early childhood service since 2010, with a strong commitment to quality, children's rights, and the implementation of the Ashter and Shielta frameworks. Anne is passionate about supporting educators through mentoring, reflective practice, and professional learning opportunities. Many of the principles, as we know, are infused in our own curricula, but also in the philosophy and curriculum of Reggio Emilia. Anne has recently contributed to the updating of Ashter through research in collaboration with Maynooth University. She has also participated in the DCU-led European Research Study on Outsteam. Anne's setting is also a recipient of the Innovation Award for Best Practice. Anne's professional learning journey has been enriched through Erasmus Plus funded study visits across Europe. Anne has visited Pen Green Children's Centre and the Froebelian School in Guildford, deepening her understanding of observation, documentation, relationships, and pedagogy, all, of course, which we're all very familiar with in our own context and in the Reggio Emilia context. Anne has also been supported by June O'Sullivan, whom many of you may be familiar with, and the team at the London Early Years Foundation, gaining invaluable insights into leadership, social enterprise, reflective practice, and quality improvement within the earlier sector. In addition to the Ashter and Shielta frameworks, Anne continues to draw inspiration from the Reggio Emilia approach, Te Wariki, Froebelian principles, and contemporary research, and is committed to creating environments where children, educators, and communities learn alongside one another. And Anne is currently leading an exciting professional journey to develop a reflective practice hub for the early years sector. The vision is to create a centre of learning where educators can engage in job shadowing, mentoring, professional dialogue, and daily workshops focused on reflective practice. Having had the privilege of visiting Anne's setting recently, I can assure you that you're in for a treat. So Anne, without further ado, when you are ready, we're really looking forward to your sharing with us your experience in Happy Days in Ballyporeen. And there it is indeed a place where there are many happy days.
So yes, you've said what we are. We are an early years service in a very rural area in South Tip. We have about 130 children on our books with 28 educators, 14 of which have completed a degree, and there's a couple of more in the process of it. So it's it's very progressive. And the bottom picture is our Teletubby Land, where we have developed a lovely outdoor space for children to explore and learn. You've gone through all our reflective journey, so thanks. I don't have to go through that now. So we're working now towards a new reflective practice hub, so that we hope that we can support and share our approach with other educators in Ireland and across Europe. So Reggio Emilia didn't change who we are, but it did have a huge impact on us. And like that, I have been on 3 international study weeks, and 2 of those study weeks over the last 5 years, I have brought educators from our own service. So about 10 of us have been to Reggio to study there on their international weeks, and it definitely impacts you in a very positive way, and it makes you really reflect deeply on your own practices. We often say that we see, and we've always said that we see children as competent and confident and capable, and that children's rights were always at the heart of what we did. But when we went to Reggio and you really you critically reflect on what you truly believe, what it means in practice, it really does change how you work and how you think. But having said that, and being there on 3 different occasions to study, our Ashter is equally as powerful a framework for us in Ireland. And it's not an approach that we need to follow in Reggio, but it will give us inspiration to I suppose, reflect and look to what we can do better. One of the things I suppose that really stands out in Reggio, and the 3 times it just really impacted me and my staff that went there, was the level of respect. It's just it's so tangible there. Every member of their community and their services is equally valued for the input they have on their children, on their daily experiences, from the cooks to the cleaners to the gardeners, the pedagogists, the artillerysts. Everybody has equal, value there. Children go to work in the kitchens every day or in the gardens. And one thing I noticed in the rooms, they would have jobs boards where children will come in the morning and put their picture towards the job they want to do that day. So you'd often see them putting their face in the kitchen or their name to the kitchen. And that's where they will go to work to prepare the daily food, maybe to do up the dining room, to get ready for the meal, and like that. Now their environments are all so, beautifully laid out, and they really spend time, making sure everything is aesthetically pleasing. But when it comes to their environment, say in the dining room, it's not just about the appearance being aesthetically pleasing. It shows a deeper respect, a deeper level of respect for their environment, for the food that's been served. And the children develop an appreciation for the food and a responsibility for the importance of caring for their surroundings. And also their meal times is a huge communication space. It's a place for collaboration, building relationships, and being a part of a bigger community. We were involved in a project with our toddlers last year, and these are our 2-year-olds. This is the year before they do their ECCE. And they had found seeds, and the seeds went on to planting seeds and then finding what seeds are in what fruit and veg. The language in this and the practice in this will really reflect the image we have of children as being capable and competent and full of potential. And rather than children, doing things for children, we really support them to do things for themselves by offering them encouragement and guidance and the time to succeed, obviously. We often say, it's one of our sayings here, that the more you do for a child, the more you are taking from them, because all you're telling them is that you can do it better than them. And that's definitely not something that we want to do. And this, I suppose, belief in our children and trust in our children is very evident throughout the preschool rooms, where children, independently prepare their own snacks every day, their fruit snacks. You'll see them chopping up their fruit snacks. So the first video will show the 2-year-olds learning how to cut fruit, but looking for seeds and the value of what's in the fruit. But the second video we will show, and I hope it works, will show how the preschoolers do their regular work by preparing their fruit platter for their mornings.
You cut it down the middle. Now see, can you pull it apart?
Look at me, Brenda. I hate this happening.
You cut it. What's that?
I did not break.
It's a grape in the middle of the plum.
I can't eat it.
It's too hard.
See?
You found the seeds here, Shah. You cut it in half and you found the seed. How many pieces do you have? 3 pieces, count them.
Look!
You have lots of pieces, Mila.
Yeah.
Where's your seed?
Gone.
It's gone. Can you find it?
Here.
Hide your hands.
See how I do with the pineapple? Cut it up like that, then comes off like that, then put it in there. See?
You're very kind, Fionn.
Pineapple
Tell her how you done it.
Well, that's not pineapple seeds.
We keep those.
Yeah.
We put them here so we don't lose them.
Well, I didn't have any pineapple.
No seeds in your one.
The seed in this one. And then I chop it up and get it out. Maybe there's going to be seeds in this, but there's no.
I hope you heard that all right. So these skills don't develop overnight. It starts in our baby room and with our toddlers. And it's where children are trusted with meaningful responsibilities and an opportunity to practice, make mistakes and try again. But it's because we believe that children are capable and that we provide them with authentic experiences from a very young age. And even another example of this is we would have in every one of the rooms from their 1 year of age, they would have real crockery, real glassware, challenging assumptions now about what very young children can do. I know one parent, I remember, she said to me, she says, oh gosh, she says, I never really thought about my 18-month-old using a glass. And she said, I had to go away for a couple of days and think about it. So these moments remind us that it's our expectations that shape our children's experiences. When we trust children and provide them with real responsibilities, they often exceed our expectations. The question is not are our children capable, but are we willing to give them the opportunity to show us? By respecting children's abilities from the beginning, we nurture that confidence and independence and resilience and that strong belief in themselves. And that qualities will stand for them throughout their lives. So seeing children as competent and confident, you'll hear this word from me forever. If you don't generally respect children, then it becomes very difficult to uphold their rights. Respect requires us to truly see a child's potential, abilities and competencies. If we do not really fully see this potential, then we're less likely to genuinely value their voice, listen meaningfully to their opinions, and act on their contributions in an authentic way. And this is just a picture of a little girl in our waddler room. She was about 1 at the time and she wasn't working. And I just saw that her noses needed to be cleaned. And I just said to her, do you want to get a tissue for your nose, Ali? So she bum shuffles over and gets a tissue. And I just happened to have my phone on me. I took a picture of her. So in this, you know, when I reflect back on this, and I'll show you a video of her afterwards, I remember sitting in the auditorium in Reggio Emilia at the time and looking at this clay work that 5-year-olds had completed. And my first reaction was, because there's no way these children did that kind of work. But by the end of the week in Reggio, I truly believe that they did. And this experience really challenged me on my own image of the child, just like Peter Moss just asked us, what is our image of the child? It really challenged me to think about, because I always thought I believed I respected them and I saw them as capable. But I don't think I fully understood the depths of their potential. So this is a video of Ali after she had cleaned her nose, and I asked her, did she want to put it into the bin?
Did the bag stop yesterday?
You gonna put it in the bin?
Oh no, I said, what is it? I didn't pack that bag. Oh no.
Doesn't that just tell you she knows her own abilities, and I underestimated her in a big way. And this experience made me reflect on the connection between respect and rights and potential. How can we truly respect children if we do not fully recognise what they're capable of? And if we do not recognise what their capabilities, how can we fully value their voice, their choice and their opinions? In our setting, we are very much about independence, and it all begins with the little things, which makes a huge difference, obviously, to our children. In these pictures, you can see children pouring their own milk into their cereals. You can see them eating from proper plates and bowls and glasses. They take responsibility for putting on their own coats, shoes and wellies. And while these tasks seem simple to adults, they are powerful opportunities for our children to really develop competence, coordination and sense of achievement. And all these children are under 2. They're in the waddler room, our junior waddler room, between the age of 1 and 2. And these is all their abilities. It's amazing. So rather than seeing children as being too small to manage these responsibilities, we view them as highly capable and competent learners. After all, how can children believe they can do something if we never give them the chance to try? By trusting children's real tasks and real material, we send a clear message that we believe in them. And it's so amazing to watch how quickly children rise to meet that expectation, proudly saying, I did it myself. These small moments of independence help us build confidence and resilience that support them throughout their lives. In this picture here, you can see children standing at these little white gates. And these gates are between the baby room and one of our waddler rooms. And the lady that's sitting in the middle of them is sitting in the hallway to the reception. And these gates often spark a lot of conversations. But one day in particular, I remember a placement officer from one of the universities came to visit us to assess one of their students. And as soon as she saw the gate, she said, "Wow, that's a great idea for my dog at home." You should see my face. I have to admit, I was slightly taken back. To her, the gates represented a way of keeping things contained, but to us, they represented something so much different. I explained that while she saw them as barriers, we saw them as opportunities. These gates were not about shutting the children behind the closed doors. They were about opening up the world. From these doorways, children got to observe the life going on around them. They eagerly watch as Tesco's delivers every Monday and Wednesday. They see the postman coming in every day. They greet the parents coming and going, and they take an interest in everyday happenings in our reception. The gates also create a connection between the rooms. You often hear throughout the day gurgling and babbling and laughter and shouts when they're talking to each other or they're looking for attention from someone from the reception or from each other. And when you hear those, it brightens the dullest day. But it also serves a reminder that, like Reggio in their aspired environment, it's all designed for meaning. What some people may see as boundaries, we see as windows to relationships, communication, curiosity, and a connection to the wider world. So we are constantly, I suppose, reflecting and thinking about our environments and how they're supporting our children and the experiences that we are offering them. So recently, in the last 6 months, we have opened up our little carpentry area. And this came from Frobillion and from being in Guildford and seeing how they do it. And so we got one of our educators here to study doing carpentry with early years. So from 2 years of age up, we offer carpentry to these children. And while some people are like astounded how we give them real tools, they have Japanese saws, they're proper saws, they have proper hammers and manual screwdrivers. But it really reflects our belief that children are capable and competent, and they thrive when they are trusted, when they're given meaningful experiences. We've also a dedicated clay area. It's in a covered outdoor space, which is accessible to all the children in all the rooms. And it's a creative space that enables endless opportunities for exploration, self-expression, problem solving, and collaboration. It has become a place where children's ideas can literally take shape in their own hands. Also, as a team, we have, and I got this actually from the London Early Years Foundation and June O'Sullivan's crew, where they have been becoming champions of practice. And I love the idea where educators are encouraged to become specialists in particular areas of carpentry, sustainability, nature, polytunnel growing, which we are very big on in our polytunnel growing now. And these champions would deepen their knowledge and their skills through ongoing learning, and they share this learning with their other colleagues. In this way, learning does not just stay with one individual here at Happy Days. It cascades through the whole team, strengthening practice across the whole setting and ensuring that both educators and children benefit from a rich and continually evolving learning environments. In all our rooms, we now have data protectors. And why we love these data protectors is it creates a bridge from home to the early years environment. We invite parents to share photographs and videos of their children outside of our setting. So everyday family occurrences, celebrations, holidays, anything really, everyday things. These images become part of our environment and they are regularly shared with the children. By doing this, we are sending a powerful message to our children that your family matters, that your experiences matter to us, and that you really belong here. Children want to see their home lives being valued and respected, and they want their families to feel that they are part of our community, not just visitors at our door. The projectors also allow us to revisit the children's learning, so we regularly take videos and photographs of any activities and things that they're doing. And when we share these experiences back, the children get to reflect and remember and build on their ideas and create new questions and extend learning. And there is something really magical when you see a child light up when they see a photograph of their family or a video of themselves mastering a new skill. It reminds us that learning is not something that happens in isolation. It is woven through relationships, experiences, community that shape each other's lives. So this is an excerpt from one of our learning journals. And this was written in our toddler room, which is the year before they do their preschool. And it was about a little girl in the toddler room who was going to walk up to the primary school in the morning with the breakfast club. So we often, children of the younger classes or our younger rooms, would go with our primary school children up for a walk to see what it's like in the community. And this is an expert where they said, last Monday it was your turn to bring Cora and the rest of the after schoolers to school with Ruth. Ruth was telling me all about your journey. As you were walking across the zebra crossing, you saw some paper on the ground. You turned to Ruth and you said, ugh, look at that rubbish. It should be in the bin. When you arrived back to Happy Days, you were telling me all about the rubbish on the ground. I could tell by your facial expressions how cross you were about this. Over the next few months, I want to talk to you more about recycling with you and your friends, Livia. You already have a rubbish bin and we have a recycling bin in our room, but what will we find out more about and what can and cannot recycle? It is so important that we all do our part to protect the environment. So this learning story was written in this child's learning journal by her key educator when she spoke to the educator who was gone for the walk. And this story really represents how a child's voice is valued and respected and acted upon by our educators. Rather than just simply listening to the child's ideas and moving on, the educator recognised it was the importance of this child's contribution, valued what she could do, and allowed her to influence the direction of the learning that week. The little girl developed a real strong sense of pride in her knowledge, her abilities, and the difference she could make within her environment. As her interest in litter and caring for the environment grew, she naturally took on the role of the little warden and eagerly encouraged, quite forcefully at times, I'll have to say, to encourage other ones to share about their surroundings. She curiously extended her learning about recycling and sustainability, leading to further opportunities of exploration and discovery. By revisiting and rereading her learning story, educators helped her to reflect on her experience and recognise her achievements, develop her understanding. But this process not only ascended her learning, but also strengthened her confidence and her self-esteem. She could see that her ideas mattered and that her actions had value. The rights of the child are clearly evident throughout this experience. The child's views are not only listened to, but were genuinely respected and acted upon. She was given opportunities to participate and contribute and influence her learning environment. In doing so, she experienced what every child deserves: to be heard, to be taken seriously, and to know that the voice makes a difference. Reggio is all about the environment, and the environment being the third teacher. And I'm often asked, why do I suppose value going to Reggio, and why do I, place such a respect on it? And we already have ASHTR, which is an exceptional framework, and I so believe that. And it guides really high quality practice in early years. And it shares very many of the views that Reggio do. Child being the centre, the voice of the child, participation, agency. But there is nowhere that ASHTR provides us, and ASHTR does provide us with such a strong, inspiring framework, but there are very few opportunities in Ireland for educators to become fully immersed in the framework looks like and feels like in practice, whereas Reggio does offer this opportunity. You can read about child-led learning and relationships, environments, and participation and the voice of the child. And that's one thing, but experiencing it is really something different. And it's only when you're in Reggio and you're immersed in their culture, their approach, when you walk through their environments and you observe their interactions and you listen to the conversations, And you witness their level of respect. Oh my gosh, it's just when you see the theory really coming to life. Reggio allows educators to see, to feel, to experience what is possible, I suppose. It transforms concepts from the words on the page into a living, breathing practice. The power lies not only in being told about the approach, but actually seeing it in action. And suddenly ideas that may have seemed abstract and tangible are now achievable. But for me, the greatest value of the Reggio experience is what gives educators the opportunity to step inside the culture, where the image of the child, the role of the educator, and the environment all align. And it challenges us to reflect on our own practice and inspire us to return with fresh eyes, new ideas, and renewed belief in a child's abilities. As educators, we know that every child learns best from, meaningful experiences. But the same is really true for us. We need to experience something for ourselves to truly understand its potential. So these are all pictures of our environment that are designed not only to be aesthetically pleasing and create calm and warming and relaxing atmospheres, but they're also actively support a child's learning and development. Our environments are carefully organised to enable children to develop independence from a very young age, enable them to make choices, access resources, and take responsibility for their own learning. We always have a diverse range of experiences to provide, but it's always based on the child's interest and what they're currently, engaged in, because ensuring that learning remains meaningful, engaging for them. At the same time, children are introduced to new materials, new ideas and opportunities that broaden horizons and spark their curiosity. And these experiences, children are supported to develop their own understanding of the world. So the more we offer them, the more experiences we give them, the better idea of the world around them that they can create. And it builds confidence and critical thinking skills and a lifelong love of learning. This is our baby room. And we're always revising, looking at it and seeing how we can create opportunities for exploration, connection, and discovery. We have mirrors placed on the wall, allowing the babies to view themselves from a load of different angles as they move, crawl, and roll around in their environment. And what may seem to be a simple resource like the mirrors, they are supporting the development because they are supporting their self-awareness, their curiosity, movement, and identity. And babies absolutely delight catching sight of themselves in those mirrors. They often return again and again to investigate that fascinating little person that's looking back at them. We also have family pictures, and they're not high up in the wall for the adults to admire and look nice. They're down at the child's level, and where a child can take them off the wall into their hands. And you often go into the baby room and you see a child with a picture of their family in their hand as they bum, shuffle, or crawl. And more often than not, you see them in their sleep room and the picture of their family in their cot with them. And it's just so touching. And these are really treasured images that accompany them to bed, providing them comfort and reassurance and a connection to home. It's a powerful reminder for the children: do not leave their families at the door, but they enter into our setting. Families remain an important part of their day, their identity, and a sense of belonging. And by valuing these relationships and making them visible within our environment, we show children who they are and where they come from. And the people that love them are important to us. And in doing this, we nurture not only learning, but security and well-being and a strong sense of self. These are just more images on examples of how the very young children we have are given great and meaningful experiences within our service. From baking, so we have our own cookery room, and every Friday we get a second cook in, and our main cook, Hannah takes our children down to our cookery room of all ages, and she cooks with them. It's absolutely amazing. And in the pictures here, one of our, I think he's about 1.5, he must have hens and ducks at home, but he's always bringing in eggs. So obviously we have to experiment about what is in eggs. All our environments are designed to support independence. As you can see the middle picture there at the top, you can see the trolley with the crockery and the water canister and the glasses, where children get their plates, get their glasses, get their own drink, And this is from the age of 1.5 up that this is offered to the children to do themselves. They're given the time and space to be able to dress themselves, undress themselves, their wellies, their coats, everything's at their level, their pictures, their names are on them. As you can see, the sink in the bottom one, they're at the child's level. So even the 1-year-olds who are not walking, they can pull themselves up to the sink. They can see themselves in the mirror. The tissues are right beside it. So when they're cleaning their nose, they can see themselves in the mirror. The bin is right beside that, so they can put it in the bin. And we support children to do this for themselves. Documentation is a huge part of Reggio because they are very project based and they have to capture their projects and the process of those in the documentation. And over the years, we have spent quite a lot of time looking at our documentation practice and reflective journey on this and how our documentation has evolved. This is just a picture of, I just took them during the week, and little Fia was very slow to walk. And in order to support her, we brought in different climbing frames. This is her climbing the frame during the week. And looking at herself in the mirror while she does so. And the sense of pride on her face was just amazing. And initially, documentation was something we did to record children's learning. Today, we see it as the most important, powerful tool we have. Documentation not only supports our educators in understanding and responding to each child's unique strengths, interests and needs, but it also helps us to ensure every child is given the opportunity to reach their full potential. But its impacts are way beyond just the child. High quality documentation motivates our educators, encourages reflective practice, promotes professional dialogue, and it keeps us focused on what truly matters, the learning and development of our children. It challenges us to be intentional about our practice and continue to ask ourselves, what are our children telling us and how should we respond? This is just an example of our jobs board where children come in and put their picture on the job they want to do that day. So cleaning the tables is a huge popular one that they all want to do. And actually washing and drying the delf after their snack or their dinner. It's amazing. Not so much the tidy up part though. It needs a lot of encouragement. So I'll show you these videos while I'm explaining our documentation. So documentation also provides a vital role in our relationship with families. It allows us to make children's learning visible. It helps parents to better understand how learning and development occurs with everyday experiences, play, exploration, and relationships. Rather than simply telling parents what the child has done, documentation helps us show them the process of the learning that has unfolded. And as a result, stronger partnerships are formed between our educators and our families. And we develop a shared understanding and a common goal about supporting their child to flourish and reach their potential. This is why every child in our setting has their own dedicated key worker. The key worker develops an individual learning plan for each child, and they work closely with the child and the family, using this documentation to guide decision making, celebrate progress, and identify opportunities for further growth.
Well done, Charlie. Well done.
Whoa, look at Pia.
For us, documentation is no longer just a record of learning. It's a tool for reflection, communication, collaboration, and transformation. It helps children feel seen, educators feel purposeful, and families feel connected. But most importantly, it keeps child at the centre of everything we do. As some of the produce from our greenhouse. This is our carpentry area, our Teletubby land, our babies in the mirrors, cookery room, at the gate, weaving, Sewing. These are just the last few. This is from our Teletubbyland. Children absolutely love this space. And thank you, everybody.
So my next participant is Professor Marissa Macy, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce my co-editor, who is full professor in the College of Education in the School of Teacher Education at the University of Wyoming. And Marissa has more than 25 years of experience as an educator. She started her career as a special education teacher in Washington and has served in teaching and research roles at a number of higher education institutions, including the University of Oregon, Penn State, University of Texas, El Paso, University of Central Florida, University of Nebraska, Kearney, where she held the Kill and Ron Williams Endowed Chair of Early Childhood Education, as well as Community Chair for the Buffett Early Childhood Institute in Washington. So without further ado, Marissa, we would love for you to give us a whistle-stop tour of the first publication, Realizing Children's Rights in a Global Context, Localization of the Reggio Emilia Experience, which, of course, Anne has brought to life for all of us so splendidly here this evening. Thank you, Marissa.
Thank you so much, Anne, for that amazing presentation. It is incredible to see it in action at your site at Happy Days. Thank you, thank you. Also, thank you to Dr. Peter Moss for sharing and kind of kicking today's event off. And also to Dr. Emer Ring, who is the amazing trailblazer who put all of this together, and your team at Mary Immaculate College. Thank you so much. And so Dr. Alessandra Landini and I get to talk about the amazing authors who contributed to our two publications, our two books. And I know we have a lot of authors here with us today, and I just want to thank also my amazing co-editors and co-authors, Dr. Ring and Dr. Landini. I have such amazing respect for both of them, and they are my Irish and Italian sisters. And I just want to tell you guys how this got started. 2 or 3 years ago, Emer and I and Alessandra proposed this idea to write about this topic. And we were rejected twice. And the reason why I bring that up is because I think a lot of times in our profession, whether we're writing for publication or we're implementing a program, we're going to get rejected. And I think it's time we normalize rejection. And we had so many wonderful chapters that make up this book, the two books. So we were surprised when we found out that our publisher wanted to make 2 books out of this because it was too big to put all in one, and they thought it would be easier to read having 2 different books. So for those of you that are on here that contributed to the books, I'm going to be talking about the brown one. And so the book I'm going to be talking about is Reggio Emilia Inspired Pedagogies of Listening and Inclusion. And we had 12 chapters in that book, and authors, there were 22 authors total, and they were from Italy, Africa, America, Ireland, Turkey, and South Africa. And the first chapter, and like Emer said, this is the whistle-stop description. I could go on and on and on about these amazing chapters and authors who have contributed to learning more about Reggio Emilia inspired practices. So this is the abbreviated version. So chapter 1 in this volume was entitled Pedagogical Listening, Asserting Children's Rights and Belonging Through Children and Adults Co-Constructing Curriculum. And it was written by two authors from the University of Massachusetts, Boston, Meryl Michelli and Mona Abozena, and their colleague in Spain at the Universidad Camilo Jose Cella, Isabella Garcia Senet. And they remind us that the child's voice remains central to the participatory rights in childhood, meaning that children should be actively involved in decisions that affect them, and their views should be considered and acted upon. And we got to see that with Anne's presentation and how that looks in action. Chapter 2 was written by Julie Lull Poole from Boise State University in Idaho, and her colleague Tara Lee Guerrera at Foothills School of Arts and Sciences. And the two of them examine how, and the title of their chapter is Inclusive by Design, Project Work in Reggio-Inspired Classrooms. Julie and Tara talk about how an inclusive project works and the pedagogy that's aligned with broader goals of social justice and early childhood education. So that's chapter 2. Chapter 3 is embedding a pedagogy of listening when working with infants and toddlers, and that is written by two of Dr. Ring's colleagues right there at Mary Immaculate College, Dr. Mary Maloney and Dr. Jennifer Pope, and they share two fundamental concepts that are deeply interrelated and derive from the Reggio philosophy, namely a pedagogy of listening and slow relational pedagogy. Another author from Mary Immaculate College is Mai Burke-Hayes, and that was chapter 4. And her title of her chapter is Appreciating the Role of the Environment in Facilitating the Participation and Inclusion of All Children. And she writes about the role of the physical early learning environment in facilitating and promoting the inclusion and participation of all children in a Reggio Emilia inspired context. Chapter 5 is entitled Beyond Children's Rights and Participation in Reggio Emilia, a diffused pedagogical ecosystem at local and international levels. And this was by an Italian team. Our co-author and co-editor, Dr. Alessandra Landini, wrote this with her two colleagues, and Alessandra's at A. Manzoni, and she's the leader of multiple schools in Reggio Emilia, and she also teaches at Unimore, the university right there in Reggio Emilia. And she wrote this with her colleague Nando Rinaldi, and he's an infant toddler center and preschool teacher, preschool of the municipality. So that was Nando Rinaldi. And then Claudia Guidici, and she works with the Guarantor for Childhood and Adolescence of the Emilia-Romagna region. And their chapter examines a dual interconnected theme within the Reggio Children approach, children's rights and democratic participation. The chapter explores how the best inclusive practices and civic commitments of different subjects relate to these themes and have been developed over the years in the Reggio Emilia context. So that was chapter 5. Chapter 6 is entitled The Significance of Pedagogical Documentation in Reggio Emilia Inspired Schools. And this was written by Nur Alakam, who works at the university in Turkey called Andokoz Mayis University. And she identifies the image of the child as competent, capable, and strong as one of the core ideas of the Reggio Emilia philosophy. Focusing on the process of documentation, the chapter considers the importance of evidencing how children learn during their early childhood experience. Chapter 7 is by my colleague from the Buffett Early Childhood Institute in Nebraska in the United States, and Kimberly Telford wrote chapter 7 entitled Advancing Equity Through the Reggio Emilia Approach. Kimberly examines how the Reggio Emilia approach offers a powerful, justice-centered framework for advancing equity in early childhood education. In positioning equity as more than fairness, framing it instead as systemic, justice-oriented work, the chapter explores how Reggio-inspired practices can disrupt entrenched inequities related to race, language, ability, gender diversity, family structure, and socioeconomic status. Chapter 8 is entitled Reggio Emilia in Practice, Enhancing Inclusion for Neurodiverse Learners in Early Childhood Education. And this is written by Daniel Mapolomoko, and he is at the UNICAF University at Zambia. And he shares the findings of a study that considered the potential of Reggio Emilia-inspired practices for supporting the inclusion of neurodiverse learners in early childhood education. Chapter 9 is also written by an author who's here with us today. Dr. Maurice Harmon from Mary Immaculate College wrote Chapter 9 entitled Speaking in 100 Languages, Amplifying Student Voice Through Reggio Emilia Approaches. Dr. Harmon writes about locating the child's voice within the overall context and theme of children's rights and discusses its alignment with the Reggio Emilia philosophy of early childhood education. Drawing on the poetry of Loris Malaguzzi as a foundation for honoring children's right to be heard, the concept that each child has infinite ways of expression is investigated, and the implication for realizing this concept in practice for children. Chapter 10 is written by 3 people from Reggio Emilia, Dr. Lorenzo Manera from Unimode, Valentina Conti from the Reggio Emilia Foundation, and Daniela Lanzi from the Infant Toddler Centers of Reggio Emilia's municipality. And their chapter is entitled Redesigning Prison Family Visit Spaces Through the Reggio Emilia Approach to Realize Children's Rights. And the 3 of them explore the contribution of inclusive design that acknowledges the right of the child to have family ties maintained. This chapter describes how Reggio Emilia principle of the role of the environment as the third educator can be applied in underrepresented and restricted settings, such as in prisons. So that was chapter 10. I have 2 more to go, and then I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, Dr. Landini. Chapter 11 is entitled Planning as a Pedagogy of Listening, Realizing Children's Right to Participation in Urban Public Spaces Through a Reggio-Inspired Lens. And she's here with us today. Legoko Caroline Mayatula from the University of Johannesburg in South Africa wrote this with her colleagues at University of Johannesburg, George Onatu and Thulisil Mapoloboke. They focus on the application of the Reggio-inspired principles of a pedagogy of listening, the image of the child as a capable citizen, and the 100 languages of children to realize their rights in the environment. They suggest that adopting this perspective can support active participation and be able to be used in constructing and inhabiting these spaces. And then the last one is chapter 12, and it's entitled Children's Right-Based Framework in Teacher Education, the Reggio Emilia Approach Workshops. And Gamze Bilher Seyhan from Ege University in Turkey explored how the children's rights-based focus on Reggio Emilia can be integrated into teacher education programs. So those are 12 chapters. I'll pass it over to Dr. Landini and Dr. Ring.
Alessandra Landini is the principal of the ICA Manzoni in Reggio Emilia and adjunct professor in special pedagogy at Unimore. And other areas of her research focus on the use of narrative formative evaluation for ECE, primary and secondary schools, and on teacher training as a community of practice that cultivates educational co-responsibility by co-designing and integrating innovative didactic in school and museum settings. And she's also a member of the board of directors of preschools and infant toddler centres, Institutione of the municipality of Reggio Emilia. And I want to say this, and I'll finish then, Alessandra. In 25-26, she was a Fulbrighter at Millersville University in Pennsylvania.
I want to thank you, Emer and Maurice, of course, my wonderful co-editors, for this enterprise that we brought together. I'm very glad to be here with you this evening and with all these friends that have such a passion in common for early childhood education around the world. I would like also to thank your great collaborators, Emer from Mary Immaculate College. Really, they did a great job. I mean, I was thinking about Carlo Rinaldi, and I was thinking that probably in this moment she's very happy to see all of us together here. Marisa and Emer, we knew her, and I can say that we were part of the same world of professional, but also friends, okay, because we were part of her close friends. I was part of the family of the city of Reggio Emilia, and she taught us to listen intensively, not only with ears, but seeing the listening as an ethical relation. This morning was a special morning in Reggio Emilia, and Harold Godson, who is a member of the board of directors of the Reggio Emilia Foundation, remembered us that she was used to say that the schools in Reggio Emilia were never meant to become a method. It was an example for her of democratic education and harbor in which people decided to defend children's rights, a broader culture of what is a vision of the society as a democratic society. I would introduce the book, the second volume, with this quote, because I think that these 11 chapters and 26 authors of the second volume from USA, Turkey, Italy, Canada, South Africa, Ireland, and India, I think that gave us an unbelievable contribution with this idea of the defense of children's rights. And so I think that she will be very happy to be here and share these volumes with us. And at the same time, I would like to tell you the title of the second book, which is Realizing Children's Rights in a Global Context, Localization of the Reggio Emilia Experience. Of course, I want to thank you as well, Peter Moss of the University College of London, for the foreword. And I go ahead with the chapters of the second volume. For the chapter 1, To Wings of a Butterfly, Promoting the Right to Play Through a Playful Approach to Learning in Global Contexts, we thank Lisa Goddard of the University of Modern Reggio Emilia, Italy, Maria Barbara Donici, and Elisa Ferrari of the Foundation, Reggio Emilia Foundation, and Loris Maraguzzi Center in Italy. In this chapter, they remind us that from the outset, the United Nations declarations concerning childhood have referenced education and play as fundamental human rights. So the chapter is bringing us inside the Reggio-inspired practices worldwide, and they try to explain how the value of play is a specific form of knowledge making into this context. In the second chapter, Close and Beyond Reggio Emilia, San Miniato and Children's Protagonists in Education, Aldo Fortunati from La Bottega di Geppetto, Italy, has written a marvelous chapter on his experience in San Miniato, where there is a community-wide commitment that resonates strongly with Reggio Emilia's philosophy. It's a dialogue of and a sort of interpretation of Malaguzzi thought in their own experience. And so we are really glad to present this specific chapter for the humanity and the sensitivity that Aldo Fortunati brought in this piece of writing. In the third chapter, Children's Right to Ecological Thinking, the Reggio Emilia Approach in the era of environmental crisis, Eloisa Di Rocco of the Reggio Children Foundation was capable of encounter the word and the idea of the children as active individuals in the environment, capable to support their ecological thinking. And she also argues about the right for the children to experience other presences as possible encounters, and not only thinking about dangers in environments. in the 4th chapter, Fostering Children's Right to Literacy Through the Reggio Emilia Approach, Pamela Beach of the Queen's University from Canada has identified literacy as a fundamental human right and has noted the contribution of being literate to empower and support individuals in understanding their rights and responsibilities. So she considers in this chapter the role of reading in the early childhood years and its potential. In chapter 5, Sarah Brownie from Africa Reggio Emilia Alliance and Redham House Waterfall Early Learning School, South Africa, wrote An Absolute Possibility, the Reggio Emilia Approach in Diverse Setting in South Africa. Sarah considers in this chapter the interpretation of the principles from Reggio Emilia against the historical and current policy background of early childhood education in South Africa, and she described as a diverse society with many cultures, economic backgrounds, and 12 official languages can be inspired by Reggio-inspired principles and opening up to diverse possibilities for educational dialogue. In chapter 6, Rosalba Bortolotti from Canada Acorn Collaborative wrote Children's Rights in Action at Acorn. And she shares with us how the approach developed in Reggio Emilia can offer a powerful pedagogical and cultural framework for realizing children's rights in early childhood education, particularly when located within a global context. So this Canadian context shows us how every context can deeply be influenced by experiences that are connected with the municipality infant toddler centers and preschool of Reggio Emilia over 3 decades of study in those schools. Chapter 6, with children's rights chapter 7, moving beyond Reggio Emilia's special rights to a rights-based response for all children in the Irish context, learning from the Reggio Emilia experience. Here we are, is the chapter of Emma Ring and Alicia O'Sullivan from the Mary Immaculate College in Ireland. And it is inspiring work on the principles of the image of the child and hundreds languages of children and the pedagogy of listening that can create an environment that is really the third teacher in a professional learning program for teachers in Ireland. The authors has drawn on the principles of the Reggio-inspired philosophy, not a model to replicate, but they build reflections on theory and practice in the specific context of the Irish curriculum framework. In chapter 8, Reimagining Education Through Participation, Dialogue and Listening, Local Communities, Global Perspectives, Benedetta Maloney, Elisa Ferrari and Mara Davoli, the 3 of them from Fondazione Reggio Children and Lori Malaguzzi Center, and Alfonso Trillicoso from the Comprehensive Institution Alessandro Manzoni in Reggio Emilia, has written an important insight into an action research project called Peace Between Culture, which took place in the peripheral area of Reggio Emilia, and that confirms how the Reggio Emilia focus on supporting dialogue and the participation of children, teachers, families, and the entire community can be extended outside of the classroom and cultivate shared understanding that mitigates social inequalities. Then we have chapter 9 by Ashraf Alam, Alliance University, India, Children's Right to Early Education, bringing Reggio Emilia philosophy with global educational practices. The author situates the evolution of the Reggio Emilia approach in its historical context and examines how the practices developed in Reggio Emilia can potentially address inequities in access and elevate participation as a pedagogical right. In chapter 9, Judith and Nadine Angela Batallaro, of the Early Childhood Consultant USA, Suzette Turner and Kelsey Burke, Turner from University of Central Florida, USA, and Burke from University of Nebraska-Lincoln, USA, and of course, last but not least, Marisa Galliano Macy, University of Wyoming, USA, with the title Other Worlds and Other Possibilities, Re-envisioning Early Childhood and Children's Rights through Collaboration of a Child's Global World of Community, School, and Family, as really described how a professional development community of practice for early childhood educators can support children's right to a high quality early childhood education, preparing educators with a study abroad to Reggio Emilia, Italy. So it is a warm chapter that talks about discovering alternatives to traditional professional development. In chapter 11, Hattie Zeynep Inan from Sam Houston State University, USA, Melissa Dawn Gatlin from the same university, and Aseynur Gunkor Gergak Dag, Natural Forest Preschool and Primary School in Turkey, has written a wonderful Enacting Children's Rights through Reggio Emilia Inspired Practices in Turkey, the Quilt Making Project. This amazing project map an expedition that weaves together artistic inquiry, cultural heritage, intergenerational knowledge, and the realization of children's rights. So the project exemplifies how the right to express views, the right to play, and the right to participate in cultural and artistic life can be integrated into everyday learning for young children. Of course, all these chapters give the reader an interesting position to reflect and interpret implications, experiences, plurality of settings, emphasizing the global rights-based agenda. And they provide collectively, I think, an excellent and functional set of practices in early childhood education and how are their effect at local and global levels. So we would like really to share with you our work because we think that these findings and all the considerations of these professors and professionals from so different countries can really allow a complex and articulated vision of possible support and examples and practices to secure children's rights and suggest multiple innovative methods of a pedagogy of listening and also of a localization of the Reggio experience as a source of inspiration like Carolina Rinaldi was meaning for us.